In the city of Davari, in a cardboard box housed next to the sewers, a woman is about to give birth. A tourist snaps pictures of her most vulnerable and intimate moment and posts it on Instagram. This is slum tourism. We define slum tourism as a type of tourism that involves visiting impoverished areas, but the type of agencies that conduct slum tourism are those that are profit-oriented and operated by private tour operators. The yardstick of today's debate is one, we think that the existence of slum tourism delays the effort of the state to ever improve the slum. Two, we concede that there may be short-term relief, but there's no need for slum tourism to come in. What we need is to be able to upgrade the living conditions of the people within the slums. But first, let's look at the nature of slums and the inhabitants. Under the first level, we look at how the slum dwellers move from rural to urban areas to seek better job opportunities, to move in hopes for better living conditions. Once they move, they're not able to afford clean water or electricity, which leads to the majority of the cases where the slum people live in unoccupied land, they illegally live in those type of lands. But more importantly, we look at the people who live in the slums. We see that these are people who have the worst quality of homes, whose jobs are based on cheap labor or recycling businesses, where they beg from city or tourists in order to get money. We think that the problem in today's debate is the fact that infrastructure, sanitary conditions, and electricity are all in terrible conditions. But the fact is that they're all under the state's control, which means only the state is able to provide legal access for the slum people. Therefore, the stance we provide to you under side proposition is that we're going to prove to you on the spectrum of different forms of slum tourism, the harms outweigh the benefits, where money isn't able to trickle down to the people and elevate their living conditions. Therefore, the burden on side opposition is not to prove marginal benefit, but how would they be able to give them long-term benefit in the long run. I will be talking about the best case scenario where you still compromise dignity, and in the worst case scenario, you lack political will to improve the situation in slums. My second speaker will talk about how it compromises long-term developmental prospects. Yes.
Are you against the photographing of victims of famine in Ethiopia?
We think that as long as the slum tourist agency comes in, brings a group of tour people without anybody's consent, takes a photo of the most vulnerable moment, then yes, we are against it. That is not something we stand on side of proposition. So let's move on to my first argument on the commodification of poverty and suffering, where the thesis of this argument is that in cases where benefits are limited, it is never justified to infringe on someone's dignity and privacy. But first, let's look at how the slum tourism works. We think that slum tourism works when tourists cruise through the slums, where there's a tour guide able to explain the situation. We think that this leads to two main things. One, you don't have interpersonal interactions with the locals because of the time constraint, because of the language barrier. But two, we think there's minimal business transaction due to the time constraint. When we look at the type of tourists in today's debate, we think that these are the tourists who are not socially motivated. Because if they were socially motivated to actually make a change, they would have volunteered to programs led by NGOs. We think the main difference between the NGO volunteers and these tourists is the fact that NGOs ask for ethical permission to establish a foundation for the developmental program. So the most of the tourists that we're looking at are those that want to fulfill their curiosity to look at poverty up close. We look at cases where, according to tourism concern, Rio Favelas attract about 3,500 visitors per month, but only 10% say they bought a souvenir of some kind, which costs less than $2 US. We think this is the type of people we're looking at where they don't want to improve they don't have a social motive. We think you're not okay with these people being used as a form of entertainment, where you're taking a tour through someone else's impoverished life is something morally reprehensible, where the basic human rights of dignity and privacy is often undermined. We think that privacy is thus invaded is better said as when a man was defecating on the street, a tourist came up, took a photo, and walked away. We think in such situation, you can never put a price on dignity and humanity of these slum dwellers. We don't think the mere $2 can justify the violation of dignity of people that were born in the worst type of situation that life could throw at them. Going to the second argument, we're going to examine the possibility of the slum tourism providing a larger benefit. We're still going to argue that this weakens political will to uplift the plight of slums. Under the first level, in these countries, in order for agencies to operate, they have to link up with local authorities. The local authorities will grant them the license to operate in this area. This therefore means that the larger the amount the tour agencies are willing to fork out, the greater the likelihood of obtaining these scarce licenses. What compounds the problem is the fact that corruption is deeply ingrained in the culture of these countries, where existence of slum tourism greatly benefits the very officials charged with the responsibility of uplifting these slums. This therefore weakens the political will to improve, since this means they have to sacrifice their own benefit. Why is this particularly bad? We think that individuals that can make the legislation to remove slums in the long run is exactly what slum needs, which no amount of money can buy. We think a slum dweller could receive $10 from selling souvenirs, but what good can this do when they don't have electrical grid lines that exist, when they don't have water pipelines that delivers them clean water, when the government fails to provide them basic infrastructure? We think that money isn't able to solve the most pressing issue in today's debate. On the comparative, under our side, given that these officials don't have a financial reward for the suffering of people, this increases the likelihood for permanent change for them to be able to tackle the problem of slum tourism. So we think that weighing this against short-term income derived that doesn't meet your most pressing needs, we therefore argue that the sacrifice of long-term prospects far outweigh this income. But yes.
In Kaipura and Nairobi, the slum tours are conducted by members from within the slums themselves. Are you okay with those? Are you against those kinds of slum tours as well?
We think that under our side, when you have these slum tourism come in, you're not able to actually gain full consent from everybody. In that scenario, we don't think that everybody's fully consented to people coming in, them taking away their basic human right of dignity, and that is not something side propositions stand for. But moving back to my case, under the second level, on the idea of the race to the bottom, we think that since the only reason why people visit slums is to see how worse off they are, tourist or agencies are going to start to compete to differentiate themselves from one another. This leads to two possibilities. One, tourist companies will look for the worst slums, or two, slums will make themselves worse off to attract tourist agencies. This allows slums to have less likely to improve, when each attempt to improve cleanliness or the state of houses represents a risk of losing their prospects of having a tourist agency come in. This increases the risk of transmitted disease such as malaria and tuberculosis, which directly harms slum dwellers in the short term as well. So weighing the immediate loss in quality of life and death associated with the maintenance of poor living conditions, we argue that the cost will always outweigh the benefit that side opposition will try to bring to us, and therefore we need to make sure that we don't have slum tourism, and we see that slum tourism provides more harm than good.
Maybe there's some students who are there. Maybe freshmen.
As I'm the first provincial speaker for the speech, I now to attend the case for the opposition. I call upon.
Philippines government set up a makeshift wall to hide slums in Manila when delegates from all over the world were flying in on a conference on poverty. This is the extent to which governments and to which we as a society go to in an attempt to hide poverty, to block it out from the rest of our minds, to pretend as if it simply doesn't exist. Ladies and gentlemen, Team Pakistan believes today that slum tours are reality tours and humanity needs a reality check. Our stance is twofold. Firstly, we believe that slum tourism creates an elevated consciousness and heightened compassion, which are benefits, which are valuable ends in themselves. Secondly, we believe that slum tourism creates a greater likelihood of change in the world. Now, we'd like to issue two clarifications here. Firstly, we're not saying that slum tourism is the only way to bring about this change. We believe that it complements many of the other methods that NGOs and governments already do in an attempt to solve poverty, but we do believe that this is one of the most effective ways because of the fact that it is an interactive, immersive experience. Secondly, ladies and gentlemen, the only team here who has a direct policy, thank you, madam, is Team Proposition, who believe that all types of slum tourism are inherently bad and necessarily do more harm than good. We believe that a vast majority of these tours are cultural tours, in which tour operators are in cooperation with the community and have their approval. Tourists are encouraged to talk to residents, engage in cultural activities, and these tours actually provide an extensive education in the history and culture of the slum. This is a trend that has been continuously increasing because you as a global community have increased regulations by focusing more on slum tourism, like at the conference on international slum tourism that happened in Bristol. Moreover, we believe that even the most unregulated type of slum tour in the city scope is preferable. No, thank you, sir. It's preferable to having no slum tour. For a substantive case, we have three lines of arguments. Firstly, we believe that slum tourism creates elevated consciousness and heightened compassion. Secondly, we believe that local slum tourism are in a unique position to affect change through slum tourism. Thirdly, there are certain direct economic benefits to slums. Now, before that, some rebuttals. The entire case was premised upon two ideas, dignity and privacy. To the first, we say that it is actually more undignified when you ignore these slum tours, when you block them out from your mind, when you pretend as if these residents don't even exist. The second thing that we say here, that it depends upon a large extent to the intention of these tourists, which we believe is in the best interest of these residents. The reason why they go to these slums is because they have a curiosity. They want to increase their awareness, as well as that was discovered in a study carried out by the University of Pennsylvania in 2012. So we do believe that the intentions are sincere and that doesn't harm the dignity of these people. To privacy, we have three things. Firstly, we believe that privacy is something that is not considered important even in the rest of the cases when it comes to raising awareness about issues like this. So you have photojournalism, you have field research. All of these things do violate privacy to a large extent because you feel that the need is great. We believe the need is great in this case as well. Secondly, you do take consent of these residents in a majority of the cases. And the reason for that is because the benefits of these tours, the effectiveness of these tours is depending upon taking the consent of these individuals and ensuring that they're also happy. Third thing, ladies and gentlemen, that we're going to talk about. They said that governments don't really solve the issue, but in a world in which you don't have slum tourism, they're not solving the issue either. We believe that they're underestimating the economic benefits that are brought about. We also believe that it's not just about the economic benefits, it's not just about the money, and that is where our positive comes in, which is directly in clash with Team Proposition. Now, first things first. We believe that slum tourism causes more good than harm because it creates an elevated consciousness and heightened compassion. Now, we believe that currently there exists a lack of awareness about the true image of poverty. So you have a lot of statistical information. So you have a lot of statistical awareness that's available, right? So you have facts and figures which give you some sort of an idea of what poverty is like, but we believe that they do an injustice to the cause of poverty. So stats might tell you that approximately 70% of the world's population is living for under $1 a day, but what they lose out of is the human toll of this condition. The constant fear of being evicted, not worrying about where your next meal is going to come from, not having the most basic of necessities, food, shelter, sanitation, healthcare, the neglect that you face at the hands of the government. These figures make poverty seem like it's a theoretical or abstract problem when it is a very real problem with very human consequences, which is something that you lose out on when you only rely upon these forms of awareness. And we believe that slum tourism is one of the most effective ways of changing that. It's an interactive, immersive experience. What happens is that a guide, who are mostly residents of these slums, educate you, who are walking through the slum, they educate you on the history, they talk about the culture, they facilitate interaction between residents and tourists. And we have an example of how a typical tour in Kenya entails the following things, right? So you visit local organizations such as HIV/AIDS support groups, such as preschools. You talk to people at each stop. You're allowed to take pictures, but only after you take consent of the residents of slums. And we think that that is pivotal because it creates the sort of awareness that we want to create. Firstly, it is attaching a human face to the problem. Because of a lack of this, we don't believe that empathy is as great as it should be when it comes to this problem. Secondly, it gives additional context to certain political problems that are present in the status quo. So in South Africa, although it is a post-apartheid state, many of the residents of slums are actually blacks and no whites live there. So this gives you a sort of the context of the problems that are still present within states, ladies and gentlemen. Third thing is also beneficial because a ton of information, so it helps create stereotypes that people have. So the media continues to portray these people as residents, as drug addicts, who are drug addicts, murderers, slums, as useless. What happens is that when you get first-hand experience, you see that there is actually a strong sense of community within these areas. So they're involved in a lot of activities such as recycling, pottery making, embroidery, soap factories, leather tanning. All of these can only come through a first-hand experience, and all of this humanizes poverty and breaks the filters with which we can continue to view this condition and brings you close to the rawness of the issue. Second thing we believe is that slum tourism is more effective for raising awareness on an individual level. So traditionally, you delegated the task of raising awareness to NGOs, to the media, to governmental organizations. However, due to innovation and advent of technology, we have seen...
Kind of information, yes sir. If you're socially motivated or if you're curious, you don't need slum tourism for you to be there.
There are people who are socially motivated, but we also believe that there are a large number of people who are not simply aware of the consequences of this problem, which is why slum tourism is beneficial because it exposes the majority of people to this issue. So we think that there's a phenomenon of microjournalism where people are involved with humanitarian crisis, victims of fighting, and all of them post about such activities on their blogs, on Facebook, on Twitter, on social media, and that generates more awareness. Because they're everyday people taking responsibility for these actions. They're people like you and I, which is beneficial because people can relate more to these forms of awareness. Secondly, in many cases, there are people you know who are reliable and who you trust. So that actually stimulates you to do something about this. And we have several examples of that. For instance, in the 1980s in South Africa, black residents organized slum tours for white residents and internationals to come experience the conditions and generate awareness, which was a key factor in creating local and international pressure, ladies and gentlemen. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, we believe that no one who goes to these areas comes out more empathetic. No one who goes to these areas makes fun of the residents. We believe that in the majority of the cases, you come out more aware, and that is why your slum tourism generates more good than harm.
Slum tourism is a social bungee jumping in that visitors dive into the life of poor people, yet have the safety cord provided by the tour operators to pull them back up. We argue that there are a variety of slum tourism, and the majority is the one that we characterize in our first speaker. We're also going to argue that here on the characterization on their ground, but to the extent there are benefits, that even in those scenarios, there are still harms in my substantive about how some tourism compromises the efforts of the NGOs and how it actually disempowers children. Before I move on to that, I want to address my rebuttals on how a majority of some are, first of all, does not provide income towards the people. Two, how some tourism violate the dignity of these people there. And three, about the need to address awareness. So now to my first area of contention, do some tourism actually provide income? We tell you that no, right? Because the kind of people that we attract there, they conceive that when they talk about how it's curious people. Therefore, the people, the majority of them who go there, the initial intent is not to bring lots of money to actually actively help the people there. So we tell the majority of the cases, the kind of money that actually goes into the community through some tourism are not a lot. We tell you that if you were to attract people who actually really care and actively want to do something about it, we tell you that those people are more likely to go into NGOs who actually specialize in those programs. Number two, please sit down. Then they talked about how locals conduct those tours and therefore it benefits them too. We tell you that the thing is, when locals conduct those tours, it only benefits those local people who conduct those tours, or the people who are connected to them, so they can bring them to sell souvenirs. We tell you that this is important, right? Because when you have local people, first of all, that actually conduct those tours, it has a conflict of interest to people like NGOs who want to elevate the slum, right? We tell you this is why it can't coexist. Because local people, the slum tours exist on the basis that people are worse off. That's how you attract people in. Therefore, it's very difficult for them to allow NGOs to come in and help them if at the same time they want to maintain the way the slum tourists are in order to gain money for those group of people, for those locals who are conducting those slums. So we tell you there's a conflict of interest there. We tell you that it's actually bad for this work. But furthermore, right on to my next area of contention, the slum tourism violates the dignity of the people there. We tell you that yes, right? Because they told you that it's okay because there's a huge need to violate the privacy of the people. We tell you that no, right? There's no need for you to violate the privacy of the people, given the fact that there are other better ways. We tell you that NGOs are the most respectable and the most they are able to actually consent for these people because they are accountable. We can hold them accountable. We know that when we do get pictures from them, we know it's asking them. But we tell you, right? Why do these volunteers actually? Why do these tourists are not able to ask for consent for these people there? We tell there's no consent there because first of all, there's no law that prevents you from walking down the streets of these homes that are shattered. So therefore, we tell you that it's no legally binding area that actually prevents you or actually violating the privacy by looking inside the poorly constructed homes. Two, we tell you that doesn't mean one person provides consent doesn't equals the entire community has the consent. And we tell you that even if they have consent, it's more of a coercive consent, right? Because we tell you, right, these slum tourists will just say that we need you to open up your homes. We need you to show us how bad your situation is in order to gain money for these people. So we tell you that even if the people don't want it, they're being forced to get that consent. And we tell you that that's not good consent at all. But further, we tell you that it's hard to regulate that even if people didn't give their consent, right? We tell you it's hard to regulate 2,500 people who goes there a month to regulate them not taking photos. It's clearly impossible. We already have difficulty trying to stop people from taking pictures in movies, right? But now, on to my last area of contention, on how they want to talk about governments want to hide poverty. We tell you that no, right? They completely our first speaker's argument about how the fact that these political governments actually have the incentive to keep these slums there because of the slum tourism, because of the corruption that exists when they actually pay the government to get the license of slum tourism. So we tell you that because there's a financial incentive there, governments will actually have incentives to keep slums there. We tell you that that's ripped off because all the problems that exist will always remain as slum tourism if the slum continues to stay there. And then you talk about how this need to spread awareness. We tell you that, and they don't talk about how you go on Instagram. We tell you that that's a problem, right? Because it only shows that tourists experience, that this slum tourism is experienced. We tell you that NGO does a better job, but it's going to filter out and talk about the way she can do it better, but yes.
On one hand, you're saying that these financial benefits are so minute that they bring no benefit. On the other hand, you're saying that they are so great that governments have an incentive to maintain these slums the way they are.
Look, guys, the thing is, these slum tourism, when they generate income, right, a large proportion of it goes to the government. A large proportion of it goes to the tour guide. We tell you that by the time it goes down to the people, it's so minute, and we tell you that that's the problem, right? But now I'm engaged in the fact that even if the people do get the money from the slum tourism, why is that bad? I saw my first year student about how slum tourism compromises efforts of NGOs, and the thesis behind this is that they can't occur at the same time. Because what does perception that slum tourism create? It's the idea of what he talked about, how pottery made it. It creates the perception that slums are already helped. How? Because when slum tourism and tourist companies advertise themselves, it sends the image that there's already an active organization there. And the rhetoric that goes through people's head is that there are already people donating money to them, therefore they'll find somewhere else to donate. But why is that bad? Because we tell you that, first of all, slum tourism is unstable. Tourism is seasonal. When there's monsoon season, when it's hot weather, no tourists will go there. Therefore, your income is cut short. We tell you that slum tourism also depends on political situations. For example, in Nigeria, when there's this whole situation right now of Boko Haram, where girls are kidnapped, we tell you that when that happens, no one's going to go to slum tours and donate money. Your income is cut there. And so we tell you that this compromises is even worse because it compromises the ability for NGOs to get notifications for the slum because of perception that there are active organizations there to help slums. So why are NGOs better? We tell you that because first of all, slum tourism has no expertise to develop slum because at the end of the day, there are tourist organizations that are profit-oriented, even if you do actually have some interest, right? We see that because of the nature of slums, we tell you that because of the nature of slums, these tourist organizations don't want to invest in projects that will ruin their business. Because that's why we see that most times in this slum or this organization projects that these slum tourism actually advertise are those like sports programs or English-speaking programs. These are short-term benefits that slum tourist organizations organize. They're only beneficial on the short run to engage with visitors, but not actually what actively benefits them, right? On the contrary, we tell you, NGO focuses on long-term development. Why? Because they get many funding from like WHO or the UN. We tell you that these organizations expect development, right? So we tell you that we give examples about Harshwell Foundation. They provide many children in slums that tell them to send their children to school in order to get aid. So we tell you that NGOs are a better solution. And we tell you that they can't exist because there's a conflict of interest there. What's my last attempt, right, on how slum tourism disempower children? We tell you that in slums, these children are taught by their parents that the people around them should beg, and that the more depressing you look, the more money you or your family can get. We can see that parents encourage begging with or without slum tourism, but the problem with slum tourism is that it creates an environment that gives you rich people to beg from. We tell you that this is bad because we want children to want to pursue education. Providing a way out for them, where you give them a way to beg and get money, makes the pursuit of education for these children even more distant. And this is bad because when they don't receive education, they have no ability to get out of that poverty, and they have no ability to demand for rights. So because I proved to you how NGOs are a better organization, we tell you that slum tourism actually can't coexist with NGOs. We tell you that this also disempowers children. We're very proud.
It's easy. Yeah, it is.
Then the second proposition created for her speech, and now to continue the case for the opposition. I call upon Jana.
On one hand, ladies and gentlemen, Team Thailand says that slum tours provide absolutely no benefits, or if there are any benefits, they're very, very insignificant. On the other hand, their second speaker comes up and says, well, you know what, they do develop work programs and education programs, but then follows that with the qualifier that there are not any long-term benefits. Ladies and gentlemen, the most long-term benefit comes to your people in the form of education, ladies and gentlemen. So they inherently they've contradicted themselves when they say that on one hand there are no benefits, but their second speaker says, well, you know what, we do have certain benefits, and we think that these benefits are very, very long-term benefits. And I'll tell you about more of these long-term benefits within my substantive case. Another contradiction, ladies and gentlemen. They said that, well, on one hand, these slum residents get really, really offended when slum tourists come, but on the other hand, they line their children up to beg, ladies and gentlemen. That's another contradiction, because you can't have both. Either they're really offended, or they take advantage of the residents who come in and get up and stand their children up in a line to beg. We think, ladies and gentlemen, that Team Thailand's case so far has been riddled with contradictions. But on a third level, they came up here and they talked to you about NGOs, and they made it sound like NGOs and slum tours are simply mutually exclusive. We don't believe that this is so. We believe that they complement each other. And we have one simple question, ladies and gentlemen, for them about NGOs. Would they allow NGOs to go into slums? Would they allow, ladies and gentlemen, NGOs to go in, conduct field research, ask questions, interact with the slum residents? Because that's the only way that NGOs are going to be able to generate any information about slum residents. That's the only way that NGOs, ladies and gentlemen, are going to get any feedback and spread awareness at the end of the day. We think, ladies and gentlemen, that NGOs rely on greater awareness being generated within society. Having established that, what do we think of the three major issues in this debate so far? Number one, what is the true face of slum tourism? Is it this kind of cynical entertainment, profit-generating thing that Team Thailand told you about, or the kind of thing that Team Pakistan told you about, a contextualization that Team Thailand completely dropped? On a second level, in which world is privacy and dignity upheld? And on a third level, in which world is change more likely to come about? So let's talk about this first issue, ladies and gentlemen, which is what is the true face of slum tourism? And we think that Team Thailand based their entire contextualization on a couple of isolated incidents. On a couple of isolated incidents of somebody supposedly taking a picture of a woman in labor or a gentleman defecating. They said that, you know what, it's about entertainment. Rich people, they go to slums to make them feel better about themselves. First of all, we think that's a very cynical worldview, ladies and gentlemen. We don't really think that that's how it works. One, if people want entertainment, there are far more ways to get it. You can go to an amusement park, you can go to the cinema, you can go to the theater. We think the last place you're going to go if you want entertainment, ladies and gentlemen, is a slum. Second, we don't just think it's about profit generation. As I already told you, many of the slum tours are conducted by people from within the slum community themselves. This takes place in Indonesia. In Cairo, ladies and gentlemen, hidden tours, a particular slum tour, or there's a gentleman from within the slum community who does the tours, and all of this staff, half a dozen of them, are all from within the slum community, ladies and gentlemen. Why do they do it? They do it for their own cause. They do it to generate awareness, ladies and gentlemen, about the problems that exist within the slums. Third, ladies and gentlemen, we don't just think it's people going through the slums snapping pictures. We think it's an interactive and immersive experience. We think what happens is you go to the primary schools, you go to the medical centers, you go to the clinics, you talk to people, ladies and gentlemen, you learn about their culture, you learn about their history. Fourth, consent. Is it present? We really do think it is, ladies and gentlemen, because picture this. If consent is not present, even if we're talking simply from a purely profit-generating kind of worldview, we think consent is still really, really important. Because, ladies and gentlemen, these slum tours, which you need to understand, they have a very entrenched community structure. They're trying to tell you that these people are simply helpless and pathetic in terms of not being able to defend themselves, but we don't think that's so. We think that if these residents don't want someone in their locality, they're not going to be there, ladies and gentlemen. And that's why consent is so very important, because at the end of the day, if these people want to generate profit, they depend on hospitality and they depend on these people being accommodated. They don't depend on these people hurling insults at anybody who comes in to go on a particular tour, ladies and gentlemen. So the only way they're going to have a successful slum tour is if there is consent, ladies and gentlemen. Couple that with the fact that most of these slum tours are carried out by the people from within the community themselves who have taken consent from the leaders of that community. There is a hierarchical structure that exists within some communities. At the end of the day, we think consent exists. Having established that, ladies and gentlemen, the second idea of dignity and privacy. Let's consider the worldview that people have of slum residents in the status quo. Number one, we think, ladies and gentlemen, that they leech off the government. We think that they're criminals. We think that they're drug dealers. And this is the general perception that society has of them. Does that really hold some residents up to very high standards of dignity? Either we do that, or number two, we completely ignore them, as the Philippines did when they constructed a makeshift wall. It wasn't just the Philippines, ladies and gentlemen. Thailand constructed a massive curtain to hide slum residents, ladies and gentlemen, when people came for particular interactive conferences. That is a world in which their dignity is not upheld. Not a world in which we encourage people to take notice, ladies and gentlemen, of slum residents. We think it is their world, ladies and gentlemen, in which things like beggary exist. Why? Because when in a world where you have people coming to the slums and actually saying that we want to buy your goods, actually saying that we want your services, that's when beggary doesn't exist. That's when you allow some residents to be enterprising, to develop local businesses. It's their world where beggary exists, ladies and gentlemen, but they have no other avenue to generate profit. But finally, ladies and gentlemen, this idea of which world is likely to bring more change. They said it's going to hinder political will because government makes profits out of slums. Ladies and gentlemen, when the massive blockbuster Slumdog Millionaire came out, generated so many profits for the Indian government, they weren't happy about it. They weren't like, oh yeah, we have lots of money. They were like, why is India being known as a harbor of slums? India is meant to be an economic powerhouse, ladies and gentlemen. The last thing that developing governments need in this world is a poor international image. They don't want to be seen as countries which ignore the poor. They don't want to be seen as countries, ladies and gentlemen, which ignore slum residents. That is their topmost priority. Secondly, on one hand they're saying that there is no financial benefit. No, thank you, ma'am. On the other hand, they're saying there is a financial benefit. Choose one, Team Thailand. And lastly, they said that NGOs are better. I've already told you why we don't think NGOs are mutually exclusive. Why we think that NGOs actually depend on greater awareness that can be generated for some folks. Having done with that, ma'am, let's say about the question case before I get some.
If you argue this, the government hates slums and hide slums, how will slum tourism exist in your case? So obviously it's not in their kind of arguments, right?
Ma'am, what do you mean how will slum tourism exist in our case? We think that slum tourism, if a particular tour operator exists, if it's perfectly alright, they're perfectly capable to set up a business. That's in the case that happens in Indonesia, in Kybera, in India. There are obviously some, ladies and gentlemen, reality tours. One of the biggest slum operators operates within the slum. Thank you. Having established that, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be talking to you about the argument about generating change, ladies and gentlemen, from within the local population. But you need to understand that it's not just people from other countries that visit slums, but also locals. 40,000 tourists from Europe visit the favelas each year, ladies and gentlemen. We think what happens then is that this enhances the empathy they feel because they see their own citizens suffering as a result of their own government's failings. What can they do about it? Things like developing initiatives and programs, petitioning to courts, ladies and gentlemen. But on a second level, these locals are especially well placed because they can revisit and frequent slums and actually track the progress that is taking place. On a second level, they can involve slum residents, ladies and gentlemen, and encourage the slum residents also to get involved in initiatives. We think that a number of economic benefits can be generated. They try to tell you that these slum tours don't invest back into the slums. That's simply false. Reality tours in India, ladies and gentlemen, reinvest 80% of their profits. They develop schools and clinics. In Indonesia, ladies and gentlemen, slum tours focus on things like microfinance programs, ladies and gentlemen, clinics, healthcare programs. Similarly, in Brazil, there are lots of economic benefits, direct economic benefits, and economic benefits that come about because these people are able to sell their goods, sell their services, and not rely on beggary, something that exists in Team Thailand's world. Because they are miscontextualizing the debate for you, because they are relying on isolated examples, ladies and gentlemen, and because we think slum tours are reality tours and humanity really needs a reality check, go to Pakistan.
I'd like to take an opposition speaker to speech, and as we continue the case for the opposition, I call upon Akrashai.
Ladies and gentlemen, slum tourism at its worst case scenario, when we argue that money won't trickle down to the poor, it does not justify the violation of privacy. Slum tourism at its best case scenario where people do get money, it destroys long-term developmental prospects. That's the line of sight proposition. I'm going to ask two questions. First, is slum tourism justified? Second, does it truly eradicate slums in the long run? First question, is slum tourism justified? We stood up and told you from the beginning of the debate that slum tourism violates privacy and dignity. Opposition told you that, well, consent is there. Several responses. Number one, consent they are talking about is based on misinformation. It's based on the promise of short-term relief. Therefore, we say these are the type of coercive and unfree consent because they don't see the long-term prospects of this consent. Second, we say it's practically impossible to get consent of the majority of the people who live in slum. Where there are thousands of people living there. Therefore, we would argue that the minority of people, even the locals who consent, does not justify the violation of privacy of the larger majority, where tourists have to walk through the entire slums, violating the privacy of those who never consent to tourism in the very first place. No, thank you. Next, they argue that tourists are curious, they need first-hand experience. This is their main line of argumentation, right? First-hand experience. Several responses. Number one, we don't think there's a necessity for slum tourism. In order for you to gain this experience, you don't need to be there to sympathize with people, to know that poverty is bad. That's why we have videos and campaigns from the United Nations, from Red Cross, that closen the gap of rural proximity. Because we would argue that humanity is better than what they argue. That when we see a poor person in a video and when we see a picture on Facebook, we know that we need to help. We don't need to be physically present in order for us to know that we need to help. The difference between that and slum tourism is that NGOs and United Nations conduct themselves ethically. When they go in, they will only go in on the basis that people there consent because there's a profit-oriented there. On the other hand, slum tourism can go in. Why? Because there's a financial motive for them to go in even if without consent because they want money. No thank you. Next thing, we would argue that on the very first time we told you that even if we accept that first-hand experience is important, being there doesn't give you that kind of first-hand experience because stories are told through tour operators. Why? Because of language barrier. There would be no interpersonal interaction between tourists and locals who don't speak English or speak your language. So we don't think it's true that stories would be told meaningfully to the tourists. But more importantly, why is this bad? Because when you can't speak the language of the person or the locals there, you see them as strangers, see them as someone who you cannot connect with, and therefore moral proximity is widened because you can't speak to them meaningfully. But more importantly, no thank you. What they lack in terms of argumentation is how does first-hand experience translate to greater change. This is something they never argue along the bench. More importantly, we already told you that if people truly are motivated, if they truly want to help, don't go there with photographs, with cameras, and violate their privacy. You can go there already with the NGO, with the United Nations, as volunteers. Don't go there as tourists. Now, moving on to my next point, but before I move on,
You're saying that you're okay with the videos and pictures that NGOs take, but you're not okay if individuals take them?
because the main difference is NGOs are people who need consent to go in because there's a financial motive and their main credentials is based on the fact that they act ethically. On the other hand, slum tourism and slum agencies do not base their publicity on those credentials. That's a fundamental difference between slum agencies and NGOs. Moving back to my case, opposition argued that not knowing about poverty is true identity because government tried to hide poverty. Number one, the debate is the fact that we already know that poverty exists. Come on, it's so huge, you can't possibly hide them. The question in this debate therefore is, knowing that they exist, how do we best help people in slums? Number two, they never tell us why government wants to hide, because ultimately, it's never possible for you to hide a large population. Therefore, by trying to hide, you create greater negative publicity once poverty is leaked out, once people know. So we don't think it's true that government has a calculus to hide poverty. Number three, if they have create incentive to hide in that extent, then they wouldn't give license to slum agencies to go in and conduct tour operation in that country in the very first place. So those are the countries that slum tourism does not exist anyway. And for this reason, we would argue that slum tourism is unjustified. Yes.
If residents don't consent to these tours, they will be hostile to all the tourists that come into the slums. Doesn't this motivate tour companies to seek their consent before they start the tour?
No, right? Because when we talk about poor people, we talk about vulnerable people, they already feel that they can't do much in these scenarios. When they have the tourists walking by, they only feel bad, but they don't have the greater incentive to go out and start shouting, and that's the main difference. But more importantly, not knowing whether there will be local resistance, we would rather err on the side of caution and allow NGOs to be the only actor whose sole interest is to help these individuals. On the second part of contention, the slum tourism helps slums. Here, my first speaker told you about political incentive and how right now slum tourism only benefits slum agencies and corrupt politicians. And these benefits are great, like what they point out, but they don't trickle down to the poor who need them most. What does this mean? It means that they always have the problem with not implementing laws to eradicate or economic policies to eradicate slums in the long run. Why is this problematic? Because we argue for the very first place. Money cannot change the circumstances in which poor people live in. The type of infrastructure, the type of access to clean water, electricity, law enforcement. These are the things that can only be solved through state intervention. But because slum tourism takes away the state incentive to intervene, because they benefit corrupt politicians, state does not have incentive therefore to change legislation to accommodate the needs of the poor people who live there. That's something that we argued since the beginning of the debate. No, thank you. Then they argue that, well, there are grassroots programs in slums conducted by the community there. The question therefore is, are they effective? Because we would say no. Education, vocational programs take a lot of time and a lot of active participation from people living there. However, slum tourism, on the best case scenario, provides immediate benefit. This means they won't want to send students to, for example, school, because it needs, for example, take another 5 years for them to succeed, for them to graduate and find job. On the other hand, slum tourism give them immediate benefits. That's why existing grassroots programs to help them don't work. More importantly, we told you how slum agencies don't reinvest. And why? Because if they invest back into the community, if, for example, the standard of living in that community increases, that's where slum tourism loses their business. Because tourists don't want to go there anymore if people are no longer poor. So we see a vested interest of the slum agency to keep them as poor as long as they can, so that they can gain money as much as they want. And that's why we think in terms of incentive, slum tourism, slum agencies don't want to help these poor people. But that's where my second speaker's analysis came in. How ultimately it's about NGOs. But NGOs' efforts are incapacitated because of the existence of slum tourism. That because when people go there, when they give money to the first poor person they see, they feel that they have done enough. So when they go back home, they don't reinvest into NGOs. NGOs who focus solely on the long-term prospects, who teach them how to fish, instead of keeping those people fish in the very first place. That's the fundamental thing in the very first place, because slum tourism is unstable. Once they leave, these people will no longer have skills. We rather have NGOs teach them skills so that they can be dependent on themselves. And because we tell you how slum tourism is unjustified, how our side help people in the slum better, go with Team Thailand.
In Thailand constantly came after you And that is a problem within a practice. So first proposition is that the only benefit that we're talking to you about is the trickle down of the money. The benefit that we were talking about from first proposition was awareness. And that, regardless of the fact that it trickles money down or not, is good in and of itself. That an apathetic international community and apathetic local community becomes empathetic towards the people that have been historically discriminated and ignored. And we believe that is a benefit enough. Did they ever contend with our entire analysis that came in first proposition? No, because now they had prepped a case from their room and they only debated that. On a second level, they never contended with the contradictions that my second speaker pointed out to you, where at one point they tell you, well, people lose their dignity and privacy and they're very, very infuriated, and another point, they let their children out for wedding. If they think their privacy is taken away, why would they ever expose their children? Why would they ever expose their culture as they like? They tell you they never contradicted, they never contended with the contradictions that, well, they make sports and education programs. Well, money is temporary. My God, education is also a temporary solution, ladies and gentlemen. What more permanent can we have than education and schools that constantly educate people for lots of years, ladies and gentlemen? Never had an answer to that. It takes me on to my first issue, ladies and gentlemen, in which I will be dividing this debate into two good pairs. First, I will be talking about the abstract level of harm or good that is caused, and secondly, I will be talking about the practical level of harm or good that is caused. So they came up to you very politely, and then they assumed, ladies and gentlemen, that NGOs are the only way of charitable work in the world today. So they came up and said, well, we like NGOs because they have consent. Okay, fine. The refutation to our case was, well, you don't have consent of everyone. Listen, NGOs don't go up to every home and say, well, do we have your consent? LPOs also go up to community leaders and take consent from them, and that is exactly what tour guides do. In NGOs, I mean, UN does not have this miraculous, magical way of going up to every home and asking for consent, so don't assume your model has consent. The second thing they told you was, NGOs and United Nations is very, very ethical. Well, then your entire case from first to third is premised upon the fact that slum tours are not regulated. But if you have a regulated form of slum tour, as we have nowadays, and we will show it to you, you have a regulated form of slum tour with a local tour guide, with the approval of the locals. For example, in the case of Kaibera, where people take food. For example, in the case of Dharavi, where people build schools within that area, then they're perfectly fine with it. Even there's another example within Kaibera, when tour guides when some house encourages to share their stories or interact with the tourists, they provide them with electricity, rent, and water for the month, ladies and gentlemen. So clearly there is consent, and this is I have shown you a model of consent within the model. Go up to a home, if they wish to interact, you provide them with benefits. Here's the NGO argument now. The NGO argument, two more refutations to it, ladies and gentlemen, which is also linked to privacy. Firstly, we don't believe that humanitarian causes are only the job of NGOs. We have foregone that idea. Why is it the idea that only institutions can be humanitarian? Why is only the idea that institutions can be empathetic towards people? People should be empathetic towards people. People like me, you, and all over the world. It isn't the only job. It's not only the job of NGOs to care for people. It is the job of every single human being. On the third level, we believe NGOs even need a base of people to support their cause, and people to relate their cause. NGOs don't shout out in vacuum, they shout out in front of people. If people don't know the cause, then NGOs don't stand. This is the point of NGOs in a second. Funnily enough, this drop dignity when we constantly attack that. We said you take away dignity when you push them under the arm. You take their dignity away when you make them a no-go area. An area that people shouldn't go to, ladies and gentlemen. That is when you take dignity away in most models, not in our model, ladies and gentlemen. We told you dignity is not yes, and here's where the entire case came in. We told you it's an immersive experience, ladies and gentlemen. People interact with them, ladies and gentlemen. People build schools for them, and that is what increases awareness in people. That is what empathizes people. That's what people come for cultural tours. And here's something I will end my first issue with. Let's just understand this very, very simply and plainly. Even someone goes for a cultural experience, or someone who actually goes for a purpose, when that person goes there, spends a day within Kaibera, see that a person does not have money probably to support his son who's really sick, is unsure about whether or not he can pay his rent. Very few human beings, as a normal question, will come outside from there and say, well, it was a very exotic experience. For most human beings, it will be a very, very transformative experience. For most human beings, as they like to assume, are not people who make fun of poverty, are people who realize poverty and get an immersive experience, a human experience. Now coming to my second point about practicality.
Point of information.
Go ahead, sir.
Awareness cannot effectively help the poor if politicians continue to benefit from slum agencies because they don't legislate laws that help people there.
Practical benefits. My second issue is here's the talk about what firstly they said governments will not do this. Governments are corrupt. Government wants to be known as governments who have something. This is absolutely not true. And here's where the lack of engagement in Thailand is apparent. My second speaker refuted this. My second speaker told you that governments don't want, like the government in India doesn't want to know that it has a slum of 1 million people. It wants to know that this is the second biggest Silicon Valley in the world. Developing governments want to progress. Developing governments want to show themselves as good governments. They want to show the government that develop. No government in the world says, well, because we're making tourism, we will keep our people poor. That is simply an argument that lacks complete truth value. On the second level, the problem was that while there is corruption, we don't believe that a lot of funds even go to the government. And here came in the argument about, again, something they never contended with, but tour guides have an incentive to do this. No, tour guides do not have an incentive to do this. Tour guides have an incentive to increase cooperation with the community. Tour guides have an incentive that these communities are more friendly, so their tour guide is more popular. Tour guides have an incentive of being more informative about their cultural names. Moreover, let's just understand who the tour guides are. Tour guides, like reality tours within Dharavi, was created by a guy who came for a slum tour and then got so moved by the experience that he created a tour guide. He invests 80% back into the community. In Kaibera, most slum residents feel that people who come from outside, visitors, feel the fact, ladies and gentlemen, feel the fact that they will most probably end up making a school or giving a check. They pay for their electricity, rent, and water, ladies and gentlemen. Most tour guides help them, like I said, for example, they interact, they play games with them, participate in their rituals, ladies and gentlemen. Did they ever have an answer to that? Clearly not. They came up to told you, ladies and gentlemen, that governments will react, governments will be incentivized. But moreover, ladies and gentlemen, do we all really, within our local community, want to make an area within a city a no-go area? An area that people can't go to, an area that people can't interact with people. These people are human, ladies and gentlemen. They have just been treated very, very badly by the government. Separating them from society like prisons and saying, well, you can't go there, ladies and gentlemen, is what pushes them under the rug. Segregating them from society and telling them that you are kept away from the entire world just because you're poor takes their dignity away, ladies and gentlemen. What we have to do is to break their stereotypes, to tell people they're not criminals, they're not leeches, they're actual humans like you and me, ladies and gentlemen, to make population interact with them, to breed empathy. And empathy does not have to have a massive goal, it is that generally the world is a better place. And we have every reason to advocate that, ladies and gentlemen. We have every reason to advocate that a guy who comes, puts up 10 Facebook statuses about these people and leads to awareness, ladies and gentlemen. Only NGOs don't have a job for awareness. Human beings like you and me have the job to care for the poor, for all these reasons, poor in Pakistan.
Like the third opposition speaker for his speech, we now go to the teams forming concluding the 5 speeches. The opposition team will deliver this 5 speeches first. Then a voice of information during the 5 speeches. After 3 minutes, the timetable original ones to let the speaker know they have 1 minute left. After 4 minutes, the timetable will signal twice to deliver the opposition's reply speech. I call upon Senna.
Some residents suffer from things like a lack of education, a lack of access to healthcare, ladies and gentlemen, a lack of access to legal rights. You know what else Team Thailand wants to deny them of? A lack of consent, a right to consent to something that can be economically beneficial, ladies and gentlemen. And Team Thailand actually said this. They said, well, you know what, we don't really value that consent because they're vulnerable. Just because, so basically, ladies and gentlemen, they actually came up here and said that even if you have a model in which the consent of people is guaranteed, they would not be okay with that. We think that is going one step further in ignoring the plight, ladies and gentlemen, of people within slums. We think that is offensive, ladies and gentlemen, to devalue the consent of your fellow human beings. That is simply not right. You cannot be okay, ladies and gentlemen, with a model that says that these people cannot consent to something that is in their best interest just because they are poor. That is fundamentally wrong. We think that Team Thailand has shot themselves in the foot by basing their entire case on NGOs, ladies and gentlemen. And why is this? Because we don't think that NGOs take the consent for every single person within a slum. You really think, ladies and gentlemen, that an NGO goes to the Ravi slum and takes consent from every single resident? There are a million residents, ladies and gentlemen, that live in the Ravi slum. They do not do that. They said that, we're not okay with pictures and video image, but then they said that with the pictures and video images that the International Red Cross takes, those are okay, ladies and gentlemen. Why are they okay, and why are not the pictures and images that we're talking about okay? And furthermore, we said that in our world, in most cases anyway, you require the consent of people before you're allowed to take pictures anyway. In the South African townships, you require the consent of people, ladies and gentlemen, before you're allowed to take pictures. In some cases, it's simply disallowed. We think, ladies and gentlemen, that this debate has boiled down to two major issues. Number one, this issue of dignity and privacy, and number two, this issue of which world really promotes change. This issue of dignity and privacy, we think that Pakistan has reasonably contextualized this debate for you and has won on those grounds. We've told you that the kind of isolated incidents that they talked about and which Team Thailand actually dropped by the end of this debate, they actually came onto our grounds and started arguing about models in which consent is guaranteed, started arguing, ladies and gentlemen, about models in which privacy is guaranteed. We think we won on that point. We told you about why their world is a world in which there is no dignity, because you ignore slums, you brush them under the rug, or you allow these kind of stereotypes about slum residents being drug dealers, criminals, you allow them to perpetuate because there's simply no awareness. You, ladies and gentlemen, what you do is you resignate slum residents to simply statistics. That is a world in which there is no dignity, ladies and gentlemen, not a world in which you acknowledge slum residents, not a world in which you go and interact with them, ladies and gentlemen, not a world in which you build schools for them, you build healthcare facilities for them, ladies and gentlemen, you establish microfinance programs, all examples we told you about, all analysis that Team Thailand simply did not contend with because it was not convenient for them to do so, ladies and gentlemen. We told you why dignity and privacy is upheld in our world, not in their world. But secondly, this issue of which world really promotes change. And they said that governments have an incentive to keep slums the way they are. We told you that this is simply not so. That the slums completely lack street value. We said that the Indian government was outraged when people started talking about the Dharavi slum after Slumdog Millionaire came out, because they simply don't want people to know that their country, which is meant to be prosperous, which is meant to value the rights of people, is harboring a slum. We don't think, ladies and gentlemen, that your government is going to perpetuate a world in which there is international scrutiny, is going to want to perpetuate a world in which your country is considered a harbor of slum. Your country is known, ladies and gentlemen, as a country that does not try to alleviate poverty. But on a second level, they said that you don't need slums to know about poverty. You know about it anyway. That is exactly the problem. The understanding we have of poverty today is so very superficial. We see statistics, we see pictures, and we think that we know about poverty, but we simply don't. We don't know about the insecurity people feel. We don't know about the fear, ladies and gentlemen, that slum residents feel when they can be evicted from their house the next day, when they won't be able to buy medicines for their dying child. How do you know that? When you go to these places, when you interact with these people, ladies and gentlemen, not in Team Thailand's world, but you simply content yourself with saying that we've seen a few statistics and we know what poverty is about. We told you about direct economic benefits, ladies and gentlemen, not even contested by Team Thailand. We told you about the pressure that people put on politicians, not even contested by Team Thailand. Because, ladies and gentlemen, dignity and privacy is upheld in our world. Because, ladies and gentlemen, people need slum towards vote in Pakistan.
Now to conclude the case for this position and the debate as a whole, I call upon the judge leader.
opposition wants to talk about slums that states actively trying to hide. If that is the case, where states actively build walls around slum, then obviously they won't allow slum tourism to exist because it goes against that principle, right? Therefore, we're talking about those countries that obviously are open to the idea of allowing slum tourists in. But furthermore, we argue that if you want to talk about those countries that actively try to hide slums, but at the same time say that slum tourism is a good source of income, we tell you that's even worse, right? Because it's unstable. Because if governments actively try to hide slums, we tell you that allowing slum tourism be a source of income is actively unstable because government will just try to crack down on those. So we tell you the best way to argue this is about when governments do allow slum tourism to exist. We tell you what if these are three main questions, right? First of all, are there actually benefits to these slum tourism? They talk about awareness, about how you connect with people. We tell you that first of all, their awareness comes in the violation of their privacy. Because we tell you that the consent that you obtain there isn't actual consent, because these some tourists actually come in and try to coerce these people to actually consenting towards it, because they say that it will be beneficial to you. And also if consent is obtained on false information. So we tell you that even if there's consent, it's not actually true consent. But two, we tell you that there's no interaction there in the first place because of the language barrier, because of the time constriction that it has in these tours. So we tell you the kind of awareness out there isn't moral and isn't actually there. We tell you that NGOs create better awareness anyway, right? Awareness can be created other ways which are more moral because NGOs have to be accountable. They have to be accountable to their credibility of being an NGO that actually helps these people. Then we talk about so we tell you that even if it's true that there's benefits, we tell you that they actually make it worse. So now let's look at the two different scenarios, right? In the worst case scenario of slums where no money goes to the people because a lot of it goes to bureaucratic structure, we argue this is the majority of the case because of the corrupt politicians that actually want to take the money from these slum tourists in order for the slum tourism to actually take place. So we tell you a lot of the money in most slums goes to these bureaucratic structure. But furthermore, we tell you that it violates their privacy. And in the best case scenario, which I argue, right, even if these people do get money, and even if they do get money, we tell you that it's bad, right? Because slum tourism, first of all, is not stable. It's seasonal, and we tell you we can't rely on something that's unstable to provide people money. Two, we tell you that if they do provide money to these people, it actually disempowers children. When it actually incentivizes children to actually want to go to school, because you're telling them there's a way for you to get money through sympathy, and we provide an industry that actually allows you to do so. No response there. So we tell you, right? So we tell you that NGOs are a better solution, and NGOs can do it better. Because we tell you that it's easier for NGOs to get consent, and it's more likely for them to get consent because we have a vested interest in the well-being of the people, while the vested interest of slum tourism is to get money. So we think that if they don't provide consent, slum tourism won't care anything. We tell you that but moreover, right, even if you consider the benefits of slum tourism, why is it still more harm than good? Because we tell you that this idea of conflict of interest that they didn't rebut, right? Because regardless of who operates the tours, whether you're local or not, these slum tours occur on the basis that these slums are worse off. Therefore, once the slums start to benefit, they start to actually have basically tell you that these tours will start to move away. Then the benefits. The benefits only stop there. There's no way for them to empower these people, and therefore we tell you that it actually keeps them within that cycle. We argue that because there's no conflict of interest with NGOs, when they go in, the benefits that they're trying to create is for long term, it's for to stay. That's why the programs that these slum tourists organize are those programs like rugby programs and youth empowerment programs, because they don't want to have the chance of these slum tourists actually in developing and then therefore not attracting tourists there anymore and then compromising their ability to make money. So we tell you that because they have a conflict of interest, the benefits don't actually exist. Even if they do exist, they actually, as an unstable source of income, it disempowers people, and the benefit is always short term. Therefore, slum tourism is more harmful than good.
How do you... This?